the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Week 6 rankings by position, stardom, situm, everything you got, plus an injury report. If you want the updated injury report and the rankings, the free link is down in the description and the comment section right now, or you can get it sent directly to you when they are published at the Mayo Media Substack, completely free to join, so go do that as well. Okay, smash like, sub to the channel while you're here. Let's get to the injury report for the running backs in week number 6. Jonathan Taylor, Zamir White are both expected out this week. Again, if information changes, I will change the rankings down in that newsletter link in the description where you can go get it right now. Joe Mixon, I have as expected out as well. Ditto for Devin Singletary. Cordero Patterson and Jalen Warren are both most likely out for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Aaron Jones is on a bye week. However, he may miss week 7, maybe week 8 with this hip injury. So go pick up Ty Chandler, even though he is on bye week, and he might have the starting job for 2 weeks when the Vikings return to action in week 7. Devin Achane is likely to be back after the Dolphins bye week, in case you were wondering, with his concussion. Dameon Pierce, I do have in the rankings this week, but not Joe Mixon. It does appear with Collins now on injured reserve and Mixon wishy-washy, at least from D'Amico Ryans and what they're talking about, that it seems like they're kind of overlooking the New England Patriots here and trying to get their guys healthy for the stretch run. Sitting 4-1 will probably do that to you, but if Dameon Pierce is back in, expect to see not a lot of Cam Akers and probably a little bit less of Dare handling the ball on the ground. Through the air, he's still going to be the receiving back. On the ground, probably not so much. Nick Chubb probably going to be out again this week. Maybe he makes his return in week number 7, and we'll see what happens with Jonathan Brooks for the Carolina Panthers when they decide to activate him to return to practice. We'll get a better sense then. I'd estimate 7, 8, or 9 in terms of which week he shall return. But again, he might be available in your league, so go pick him up right now if you got the chance. Running back rankings for the week. Saquon Barkley at number 1, Jordan Mason, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, James Cook, Josh Jacobs, Chuba Hubbard, Breece Hall, James Conner, Kenneth Walker III, Javonte Williams, Brian Robinson, Tyrone Tracy Jr., Rico Dowdle, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Najee Harris, Trey Sermon. And that's where I'd actually cut it off in terms of the guys that, that's my tier of players. Obviously, there's multiple mini tiers as a part of that one big tier. But those 21 for week number 6 should be the ones who are leading their team in terms of very projectable touches out of the backfield, be it between on the ground, receiving game, goal line. The one that I'd probably have the most doubts about right now, we saw Goodson, the good son, at least, Macaulay Culkin, work himself in a little bit with Trey Sermon. And I do have Anthony Richardson projected back to start for the Colts this week. It's not a great matchup against the Titans, but we did see very early in that game that Trey Sermon was the one handling the ball the vast majority of the time. I suppose you could have some doubts about Alvin Kamara because we don't at this point know who's going to be starting at quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. It's probably, well, we know it's not going to be Derek Carr. He's going to miss multiple weeks, so it's going to be a backup of some sort. It's either the guy that we saw on Monday night, it could be Spencer Rattler. We'll see how they enjoy checking down to Alvin Kamara, but they might just run the ball more at this point. And Taysom Hill may or may not be back, probably not this week, so the goal line touches should still go to Alvin Kamara in the spot against the Bucs. We just saw the Atlanta Falcons light up this Bucs defense, so I'm not too worried about him. He's like the one guy on the Saints I'm not worried about. There was concern about James Cook. He did not practice on Wednesday, but they play on Monday Night Football, meaning that Wednesday's kind of irrelevant to the conversation with any of the Bills players. Shakir also did not practice on Wednesday, but we'll see if it's Friday, Saturday. If they're not practicing, then all of a sudden we're going to do a whole lot better. Circling back up to the top for just a second, there is an underdog free pick for Thursday Night Football, and I've already entered my play. Since I am not a new player, I don't get the free pick. But if you have not signed up for Underdog, if you use code MAYO right now, not only will you get that deposit bonus of up to $1,000, you'll also get a Brock Purdy free pick. So you just take the higher on Brock Purdy of 0.5 total yards, then you add Jordan Mason higher rushing yards, DK Metcalf higher receiving yards, and win 6 times your money. It could be that easy, as long as they go higher than their totals. But with that free pick and play, you want to maximize what you can do. If you have not played yet, code Mayo at underdog right now to unlock the free pick for Thursday night football. Or hell, you could just save it, use him for Thursday Night Football, and use someone from the weekend in order to do that. Maybe you're back on NHL or NBA or whatever it is, and you got a strong week, and you just want to go Brock Purdy and someone else to win 3 times your money. You can most definitely do that, but you got to use code Mayo at sign up right now at underdog. Okay, back to the rankings for just a second. Chuba Hubbard just continues to be a force on the ground. Even when he got scripted out a week ago, he was still able to put up right around 20 fantasy points for the Carolina Panthers. And if it's a more competitive game, I know as 6-point underdogs this week, it may not look that way against the Falcons, but we just saw the Falcons defense get shredded as well. And Hubbard is getting all of the run while the game is still within reach for the Panthers. So as long as the Falcons don't jump out to a 21-point lead, or they're up by 14 with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, we're going to get a big dose of Chuba Hubbard, especially with some of the injuries that we're seeing from the Panthers right now. And I'm going to commit to Breece Hall at number 10. He's still playing a ton of snaps. We've even seen some Breece Hall, Braylon Allen double backfields, and there is some concern that some of the short yardage might go to Braylon Allen. I completely understand that. But in terms of target share out of the backfield, I have him projected at around 14% of the target share from Aaron Rodgers Monday night against the Bills. And although the Bills did get lit up by Derrick Henry 2 Sundays ago on the ground, they've been relatively good against the run so far this season, but they've been crippled against pass-catching running backs who aren't named Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry just crushed them. Everyone else, it's all been the pass catchers. Like we saw Dare do it against them a week ago. I would expect that is how Breece Hall ends up with the vast majority of his yardage and maybe even points this week. And then if he can score a touchdown, he's right around that fringe of the top 10. If you wanted to play James Conner or Kenneth Walker or even Javonte Williams, who's been sneaky underrated. He's a guy with 0 upside right now, but he continues to get double the work of Jaleel McLaughlin. Of course, McLaughlin stole his touchdown last week, but he's getting like 3, 4, 5 catches a week out of the backfield between on the ground, double-digit touches on the ground, 3 to 6 catches out of the backfield, combo those for over 100 yards, which we're seeing even against a tough defense with the Chargers this week, that it's going to be a very good situation for Javonte Williams, and no one is really paying a ton of attention to him at the moment. So those are the big ones to really focus in on. Obviously, if Devin Singletary plays, Tyrone Tracy is not going to be in a good spot against the Bengals, but if he is the starter, then boy, he could absolutely light them up. The Bengals defense is just a defense you actively want to target in any situation with almost any player, because they score a ton of points to keep the game moving and slowing the clock down. And then on the other side of the ball, it's just pure catch-up the entire time. And that defense is so soft as it is anyway. Tracy could do more damage against the Bengals this week than he did against the Seahawks in week number 5. So if he is still available in your leagues, go pick him up and start him this week at running back. So Sermon was the cutoff point for me. Najee, listen, there's no Warren, there's no Cordero Patterson. Again, we just didn't see them really effectively run the ball whatsoever, or even play any semblance of offense whatsoever against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Against the Raiders this week, that should be a bit of a different story. So after that, as we go down the list a little bit, Pollard at 22, ETN, Rashad White, Chase Brown, Zach Moss, Jerome Ford, Ramondre Stevenson, Justice Hill, Bucky Irving, Austin Eckler, Alexander Madison, who is full go as the starter for the Raiders. It's just, that's not doing you any good. Amir Abdullah looks so much better than Alexander Madison. Not that I would play Abdullah, but it's just, Madison needs to do something. Playing against the Steelers defense is probably not the place to go mine fantasy points. And I guess there is an outside chance that Zamir White comes back anyway. I have him out of the rankings, which means Madison would fall even farther down. And I wouldn't rank Zamir White much higher than 34 anyway. In fact, he might be a little bit lower. But these are all the guys who are either in bad situations, bad matchups, or timeshares. So we have to pick our poison here. Like Chase Brown and Zach Moss, I have back-to-back at 25 and 26. Still not sure what's going on with Zach Moss's ankle. He got that hip drop. They said he has avoided serious injury, but he only came back in for one more carry, and then we didn't see him in overtime. It does seem like at the moment Chase Brown is beginning to usurp that role a little bit. It's never going to be an 80-20 split. At best, it might be a 55-45, 60-40 split, but at the moment, the past few weeks, Chase Brown has been the guy in that backfield. The reason for the lower ranking at 25 is, look, it could just be a situation where it reverts back when Zach Moss and they ride the hot hand and it's against the Giants and it works out well, trying to beat the pressure that the Giants are going to put on Joe Burrow, and they want the guy who's more solidified as a between the tackles runner, which does seem to be Zach Moss. So there is that out that Moss is much better than Chase Brown, but the upside of Chase Brown, at least what we've seen recently, is where you want to be at running back if you're going to take that hit. ETN, so this is a tough one. The Bears are one of the biggest run funnel defenses in football. They're second against the pass or 30th against the run. Tank Bigsby has obviously looked a lot better than Travis Etienne, but it's been this shoulder injury. He came into the week with the shoulder designation. Etienne played the vast majority of the snaps early in that game against the Colts. He gets a bit banged up with the shoulder. Bigsby breaks off a touchdown run. Then it's all Bigsby after that. If you told me that I should be ranking Tank Bigsby at number 23 and Etienne outside the top 30, where I have Tank Bigsby right now, which is at number 35, I could make a good argument for that. I'm sure you could make a good argument for that right now. But I'm going to go with the guy who's been established as the starter for the longest time. If we get bad practice reports for this London game that he is still dealing with the shoulder, then I'm going to change my tune a little bit. And I'll probably move him down and move Bigsby up. But it's a situation right now where if the Bears do jump out to a lead in this game, Etienne was still the one who was working as the primary pass catcher, even through the shoulder injury a week ago. That if it's catch-up mode, it's going to be Etienne. If he's not completely injured and the shoulder is fine, it's going to be Etienne. Hence why I have him a little bit higher right now. And it's kind of ditto for Rachaad White versus Bucky Irving. Not sure what the circumstance is going to be with Bucky Irving after he put the ball on the ground and cost the Bucs that game on Thursday Night Football. He's been looking better than White between the tackles, but we know that Rachaad White is going to get his work through the air. So he has a very good floor when it comes to that. But if he continues to get some more work on the ground against the Saints, who have a very good run defense, obviously they weren't able to stop Kareem Hunt, but generally speaking, throughout the course of the year, especially with a backup quarterback playing, that they're probably going to slow the game down. There's going to be fewer snaps, fewer plays run on both sides of the ball because of that. Then the fantasy upside for either of them isn't really there, especially if Irving has taken over a lot of the goal line work that White doesn't get, where you might see a situation where 70% of the work goes to White between receiving and rushing, but the important touches go to Bucky Irving, thus taking away all of the upside from both of them. And none of them are great both are good fantasy starts. Neither of them are great fantasy starts. They're all below what I'm calling this week the Trey Sermon line. Wide receiver injuries as it stands right now going into week number 6. There is a rumor that the Davante Adams trade to the Jets has actually happened. It just hasn't been reported as of the time of this recording. Even if he does get traded to the Jets, I'm not sure if he'd be playing on Monday Night Football. I'm guessing that he would be, but where I don't have that official news yet, I do have him out of the rankings right now, so I can discuss that on Thursday morning show on Mayo Media Network. Sub to Mayo Media Network. I do the quick hits Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then the full update on the Pat Mayo experience with all the rankings, injuries, and everything that you need to know for the weekend on Saturday afternoon. So you can tune into that if you need a refresh of what's going on. I'll break down the Davante Adams situation if it happens right now and how that pertains to the Jets. Obviously, he's not playing for the Raiders anymore, so the Raiders that we can actually figure out. The one who's most in question this week, I don't know if Xavier Legette is going to come back for the Panthers or not. Not that you really were going out of your way to play him anyway, but with 4 teams on bye, he would have been a consideration, if anything else, this week. I have him out of the rankings for the moment. I believe I have him out of the rankings for the moment. I think so. No, if he's questionable, he's in the rankings. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are both in. Cleveland plays a lot of man and one high safety coverage, which is what A.J. Brown absolutely annihilates. You've been sitting on your first round pick for a while. He hasn't been playing. Coming off the bye week, it is time for him to be unleashed. Khalil Shakir did not practice on Wednesday, although I do expect him to be back with his ankle injury. If he doesn't practice the next 2 days, I shall remove him from the rankings for that fun Monday Night Football game against the Jets. Not that it's a great matchup anyway, but he is in the best position to succeed against that good pass defense. That's another run funnel defense, by the way. A team that's very weak against the run, very strong against the pass. The Vikings were able to take advantage early with Aaron Jones. Then he got hurt in the London game, and Ty Chandler just wasn't able to make it up on the ground because, frankly, he is not as good as Aaron Jones. Malik Neighbors expected to be back in. Romeo Doubs expected to be back in for the Packers as well. That's actually good news for Wicks. So Wicks isn't going to command as much as attention as we saw a week ago. Davante Adams, as I mentioned, is going to be out of the rankings until I have to put him back in if that trade officially goes through. Trey Palmer expected to be back in for the Bucks. Jalen McMillan expected to be out for the Bucks with that hamstring injury. So more Sterling Shepard in that game, as we saw on Thursday Night Football. Brendan Cook's on injured reserve. Nico Collins has been placed on injured reserve, so he'll miss a minimum of 4 games with his hamstring injury. Outside of that, Christian Watson is expected to be out once again. Ditto for Noah Brown and the Washington Commanders. Cooper Kupp may be coming back in week 7, by the way, to get your hopes up a little bit. Hopefully he's as good as he was the moment that he left, because we're riding a huge preseason underdog play that at this point of the season, with Darnell Mooney hires, with who do we have? Darnell Mooney hire. We have Cooper Kupp hire. That's the big one. Higgins coming back and playing really well is really helping out his adjusted total, which is fantastic news. So everyone else is trending to be over their number where we wanted to go with. It's right now Cooper Kupp needs to come back and continue to do what he was doing to get himself up around that 900-yard mark for the season. When he comes back, he's going to be a top 10 guy, especially without Puka in that offense. I do think that Jordan Whittington takes the biggest hit of anyone on that team right now because he was filling in for the Cooper Kupp role. If you ever want to hear more about the fantasy prospects for these teams, each of the players for the rest of the season, that's what Jake and I talk about on the Monday morning show that I release on Mayo Media Network. So you can sub to Mayo Media Network. We're still in that race for 50,000 subscribers. You smash the like while you're here, or you can just download, subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast, and it'll get sent right to you. We do the power rankings for real life football on that show as well, then go team by team and discuss their fantasy prospects, sell high, buy lows, some trades you can make, some pickups that you want to look at, or guys you might want to stash on your bench. That's where all of that information comes in. The wide receiver rankings for week number 6. Jamar Chase is number 1. Malik Neighbors number 2. Amon-Ra, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown. He's back. He's number 5. DK, Terry McLaurin against the Ravens. That game should be wonderful to watch. It should also be a shootout, presumably based on the total of that game. And big old Terry is the only one who does anything, at least reliably, in that Washington offense, who isn't Brian Robinson or Jaden Daniels. Of the receiving core, he is the guy that you want to have. DJ Moore at number 8, another good situation for the Bears passing offense. The Jags are bottom 5 in the league in pressure rate. What we've seen with the Bears offense the last 2 weeks, their offensive line is still not good, especially in the middle, but they've been playing teams that cannot rush the quarterback. It was especially exemplified last week against Carolina, who generated basically nothing. Caleb Williams was like counting guys in terms of the route. He's counting the guys on the field while he was back in the pocket. He had that much time to throw. He went over 300 yards. He's producing good fantasy games. They're in London. This is a great defense for him to take advantage of, hence why you have DJ Moore back inside the top 10 at receiver. Deontay Johnson, one bad week's not going to deter me. He's back at number 9. Jaden Reed, Stefan Diggs, who does look like he will be the prime beneficiary of Nico Collins being out. So the way that the Texans are going to be operating right now is Xavier Hutchinson, at least for 1 week, stepped into the Nico Collins role, which could be good or bad against the New England Patriots, because Christian Gonzalez is going to take someone out of this game. And presumably, where they line up the majority of the time, that would be the Nico Collins role. Therefore, you would have Hutchinson not running a ton of good routes against bad defenders. They'd be up against Christian Gonzalez the entire time, which just wouldn't be good. So I'd expect Diggs to take the big jump up. And with Tank Dell, my guy Dr. Jesse Morse was pointing this out, that we've just seen this happen a lot with a lot of players coming off this injury, where it takes them to like the midway point of the season or even later in the season to get back to as close as 100% as they were pre-injury. And it has to be affecting him right now. And maybe we'll see him with this ample opportunity without Nico Collins around to establish the role that he had a year ago, where he was their deeper threat down the field. But he is just not generating the same sort of separation that we saw last year. So he is going to be down in the rankings until he actually proves something. Because if you've been playing Tank Dell, trust me, I'm one of the people that have been playing Tank Dell. It's not been going well for anyone right now. Mr. Target himself, Garrett Wilson, is at number 12. T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Debo on Thursday night. Drake London, Devonta Smith, who's back. He's at number 17. Mike Evans, Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Flowers against that brutal Commanders secondary. George Pickens. Pickens was on a snap count. There's something going on with him, but Dallas's D is not great, but it's better than the Raiders defense at this time. So this is a great spot for George Pickens to get himself reestablished as the target hog in that offense, which he still was, but out there for more snaps to really have an explosive game with Justin Fields against the Raiders on the fast track in Las Vegas. So he remains Still as a mid-tier wide receiver 2, a low-end wide receiver 2 at number 21. Mooney, Wendell, Tank Dell, there he is at 24. Brian Thomas in a bad matchup. Anyone against the Bears is a pretty bad matchup. Brian Thomas is the first read from Trevor Lawrence the majority of the time. He is getting great separation. He can overcome the bad matchup, but sometimes it doesn't work out well, especially for a rookie when they're facing their first true great challenge of the year. And he's established himself as the number 1 on this team over Christian Kirk. This could be a bigger Christian Kirk or Gabe Davis game, or Evan Ingram that he is potentially returning to this offense rather than Brian Thomas. I love his prospects the rest of the season, obviously. Just do not like him in this matchup against the Bears. Even in garbage time, catch-up time, no matter what happens, if the Jags do jump out to a lead, it's probably not going to be great for the amount of targets that he sees in this game. Ayuk at number 26, Khalil Shakir, who I do have in at the moment at number 27. He does run the proper type of routes to get to this Jets defense. They're shorter A-dot routes, they're option routes, they're over the middle, there are a lot of yards after the catch. Normally when you think of the Jets defense, they do have a decent inside presence, but it's really the outside where they take away your passing lanes and funnel everything to the inside. So again, expect a lot of running, a lot of short passing, which Shakir would be able to do if he is able to come back from this ankle injury. If it's not him, there's probably not a Bills receiver you want to start, because Keon Coleman has been relying on one big play per week just to have any fantasy viability. Whether it's against Reed, whether it's against even an unhealthy Sauce in this game, maybe he can fluke his way into a touchdown, but one catch per week is not really doing it for a guy that you want to be starting on your fantasy team. So one of the worst matchups that he can have as well. So Shakir, 27, Jameson Williams coming back this week against Dallas at number 28, Wicks at number 29. Again, I like that Romeo Doubs is back, that he can draw a little bit more attention away from Wicks. Wicks was out there, he was running. This is a great matchup against a sieve Cardinals secondary. Amari Cooper at number 30. He's going to get traded at some point. You got to believe that. And this week against the Eagles, they're 8.5-point underdogs already, so expect more throwing, expect more off-target throws, just throws that bounce off his hands, but you see that the opportunity is always there for him, thus making him a very intriguing fantasy play with a ton of upside, but you know where that downside comes in, especially if you've been playing him. You're like, man, he should have had like 6 touchdowns so far this year. And he just doesn't, because Deshaun Watson sucks. And Deshaun Watson's the one throwing him the ball. But number 30 in a week with injuries and 4 teams on bye is more than good for Amari Cooper. After that, Jalen Tolbert enjoyed the target share that we saw, and the Lions defense has been very gettable this year. He's the clear number 2 with Brendan Cooks out. He's running a ton of routes, and the targets from Dak continue to emerge. He's number 31. I still have Shaheed at number 32. This one is a bit iffier, although he's been worked more in on these intermediate routes. You saw again what he can do on Monday night against the Chiefs. Will they just start calling more go routes for Shaheed to see if he... Apparently no one in football can get behind the defense anymore except Shaheed. Can they find someone to get him the ball would be the biggest problem for me. But even yards after the catch, if they throw him some bubble screens, he has worked his way up even past Chris Olave, in my opinion, in terms of the weekly rankings based on what we've seen, because he has the big play potential, and now he's running more routes and seeing a higher percentage of the target share. His targets are more valuable than Olave's at the moment. With a backup quarterback, you don't see a lot of bubble screens and the opportunity for easy throws where the receiver can do a lot after the catch that you do with Olave. You just don't see that. You see that with Shaheed, so I can see that being used a ton here this week as they try to alleviate the pressure of whoever it is who ends up set under center. He'd be the one guy that I'd be okay with starting. I have Olave at number 34. It's not that he's like a terrible play, but normally he would be inside the top 20. He just cannot have that sort of trust in him in week number 6. Tyler Lockett's at 33. Quentin Johnson, Roma Dunze, Jackson Smith in Jigba, 35 to 37. Josh Downs. Romeo Doubs, I do have put back in at number 39. I don't worry about Josh Downs. I have him as the number 1 Colts receiver right now, but I do have Anthony Richardson back in the rankings, and I actually think he's better with Joe Flacco than Anthony Richardson. I know that he and A-Rich had this rapport at the beginning of last season before Richardson was out for the year, but he just doesn't throw as much. So when you have Flacco, who throws a ton, especially on these shorter routes where he can lead you and throws the ball a bit more accurately than Anthony Richardson, you just get more volume out of it that way. He should still be fine. He should probably lead the team in targets. I don't worry about that. It's just that the overall amount of passing attempts are unlikely to be there. Therefore, that the upside will not be there for Josh Downs. Pittman at number 40. Then you got Trey Tucker with AOC starting at quarterback. Darius Slayton reduced to his role as the number 3. He's no longer playing the Malik Neighbors role. We got our week out of Darius Slayton. My guy, Darius Break the Slayton. That's for you who anyone watched the DraftKings show, and he was the cheap play of the week. It's still a good spot for him against this Bengals D. Maybe he is a nice guy that you go back to if you picked him up a week ago, because he's still going to have decent upside. Why he is at number 42 in the rankings, because you can just get behind this D and go. My issue would be is that when Neighbors is in, all they do is throw to Neighbors and then Wendell and then whatever is left over. Is there enough for Slayton to make it viable for him? Well, it would have to be either a corner or a post route where he gets behind the defense and takes it to the house. And against this defense, that's something that's possible for Darius Slayton this week. Yoshivas, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Ray McLeod at number 48. Guy's not bad and is out there every single snap for the Panthers. He's out there more than Drake London. He's out there more than Kyle Pitts. I don't think people have caught on to this yet, and he's playing the Panthers. So if there's ever going to be a spot for him, this would be the week. Keenan Allen, Cortland Sutton, Ladd McConkey. We saw Quentin Johnson not really be all that viable the last time that we saw him 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs, but that was more of the Chiefs taking out Quentin Johnston, thus allowing Ladd McConkey to score the touchdown. QJ is where you want to be on the Chargers offense. We've saw that for the first 3 weeks. We'll see it again in week number 6, unless the Denver's D is good. There might just not be a lot of scoring in this game. Why he's not even higher. He's still not inside the top 30. He's inside the top 40, but not the top 30. And then McConkey gets bumped down a little bit as well. Alan Lazard is touchdown or bust. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's useless. Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Coker. No, so I have Leggett in the rankings right now. He's at number 62, as I mentioned before. There's Keon Coleman down at 61. 2 guys that I really don't like this week. You also have Zay Jones coming back off suspension for the Arizona Cardinals. That's why Michael Wilson is the second-ranked Cardinals receiver. Well, third, because Trey McBride is going to be up there too, behind Marvin Harrison. But 59, Zay Jones is going to work his way back in. How much, I don't know in his first week back, but it's going to take away a little bit from Dort. It's going to take away a little bit from Michael Wilson. So just keep that in mind if he was someone that you were leaning on a little bit. I have 2 Patriots right here, 55 and 56, Demario Douglas and Jalen Polk. Polk should have had the touchdown against the Dolphins, but with Drake May starting, I would guess the easier A-dot routes of Demario Douglas end up coming through. Now, if May can take advantage of his arm, Polk is the guy to take advantage of that. So it really depends on what you want if you're playing in deeper leagues and you're down to this level where you're thinking about Polk or Super Demario. He's not going to win, but he might end up with like 6 catches for 58 yards and maybe he sneaks in for a touchdown because he's going to be standing 4 feet away from Drake May and they can just dump it off the entire time. Jalen Coker, I did put up a little bit above Leggett because I'm worried that Leggett might re-injure himself, and Coker looked good. He looked way better than Jonathan Mingo did in catching garbage time against the Chicago Bears, and Mingo stepped in for Leggett when he left the game, but Coker was the better player. So Holy Cross's own Jalen Coker, so get him in there. If Leggett is going to be out, he's a very sneaky DraftKings play, or even an underdog higher pick him as well. Code Mayo again at underdog will unlock that Brock Purdy free pick if you're a first-time player and get you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. So go do that right now. For almost about 2 decades, the irons were really the only good part of my golf game, unless you include 300-yard drives, which meant hitting it about 150 yards straight and 150 yards with slice into the woods to the right. So I finally went and got lessons, straightened out my swing, and all of a sudden I could drive the ball pretty decently, pretty straight. And then my irons just kind of went wayward with the new compression that I was getting onto the ball. So it was time for me to make a change with my irons. So when I heard about the new PXG Black Ops irons and how they can dramatically improve my game, I had to give them a try. Booked a fitting with the PXG location, brought in my current irons, and took the PXG challenge. The staff was amazing. We worked on my ball flight through TrackMan in order to find the perfect irons and the perfect length and the perfect loft for what my game demands these days. And the new Black Ops irons are incredibly easy to hit, they maximize performance, and they're fun. Oh, and they're only $149.99 a stick. That is a great price for a great golf iron. So take the PXG Irons Challenge. It's a ton of fun, and if PXG's new Black Ops irons don't outperform your current irons by delivering either more distance or tighter dispersion, that means better accuracy, during your fitting, you'll get a $250 MasterCards reward card. Hurry, this offer ends October 7th. Book your fitting today at pxg.com. That's pxg.com. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Supercharger, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Tight end injuries, Taysom I have is out right now. He could get back in with this cracked rib that he's dealing with, but that sounds very painful. And he missed Monday Night Football already. No word yet on his practice for Sunday against the Bucs. He would be fringe top 10 if he ends up playing. Again, I'll update all of that on Saturday in the full rankings refresh and injury report once we have more information. Michael Mayer continues to be out with a personal issue. I have him out of the rankings. Evan Ingram I do have back in for the London game. Fortunately, you'll know about that very quickly as it is the first game that kicks off very, very early. But if he's like a game time decision and you live on the West Coast, you might want to set an alarm to wake up early so you don't end up with a 0 in your lineup if he doesn't go. But I have him in the rankings. And of note, TJ Hawkinson is expected to return and play for the Vikings in week number 7. Again, another player that could be out there on your waiver wire that would probably be a top 5 tight end the rest of the season if he is there. So go take a peek. That's all I'm saying. Rankings for the week at tight end: Ferguson, Kittle, McBride, Bowers, Goddard, Kraft, Laporta. And hell, I'll throw Evan Ingram if he's active in there as well. So those top 8 are in the circle of trust. Jake and I talked about the circle of trust on Monday at tight end. Obviously, Travis Kelce is in that mix as well, but he's on bye week right now. There's only so many tight ends that you feel good about starting every single week. And this week, those are the 8 of them. Everyone else, just pray for a touchdown from someone. If you got a hunch that someone's going to score a touchdown, just throw them in your lineup. Like, I'm looking at Travis Kelce replacements right now in a lot of my leagues. None of those top 8 are eligible to be picked up in my 14-team league, so I really need to start going down the list. So after that, it's Cole Kmet, Dalton Kincaid, Isaiah Likely, Hunter Henry, David Njoku, who was at practice on Wednesday with his new knee. He had the ankle injury. He came back, got a touchdown, then he hurt his knee. He is practicing, so I do have him in. Unfortunately, again, Deshaun Watson throws in the ball, so that's bad news for anyone who needs to score fantasy points through the air. Kyle Pitts at 14. Sell high on Kyle Pitts for the love of God. He might have a good game against Carolina. This is not a player that you want to trust in your lineup at all. 2 good weeks in a row, people will still buy into the Kyle Pitts hype. You shouldn't buy into the Kyle Pitts hype. He gets 0 separation from defenders. It's truly horrendous. And he's simply just not on the field as much. With this new look Atlanta offense with Kirk Cousins, he's not playing as many snaps as he has the past 2 years. And Ray McLeod has kind of taken his spot as slot receiver in this offense. And it's not like they asked Kyle Pitts to block. He's not in jumbo sets. So he can't score fantasy points off the field. And for the first 4 weeks of the season, he was basically scoring as many points on the field as he was off the field. 0. So one more good game. Pray he catches a touchdown. Trade his ass to someone else. Dalton Schultz could see an uptick in target share without Nico Collins around, but it just has not materialized in this offense. Frankly, the Houston offense has been wildly underwhelming so far this season, and the Patriots D has not been good outside of week 1 this year, so maybe it's a chance for them to get some of these other players going. It's just not a good option. Same as Cade Otton. Like, Cade Otton's good 1 week, bad for 3 weeks, good for 1 week. Same with Mike Gesicki. Against the Giants, that could be a route that you want to go down. Freiermuth at 18, Zach Ertz at 19, Noah Fant at 20 on Monday Night Football. If Taysom Hill misses the game, we just saw what happens with Juwan Johnson. Like, do you really want to have 5 for 29 in your lineup? Like, maybe that's good for you. I'd rather shoot for the moon, like if we were playing hearts here, and try to find someone just a little bit better than that. Maybe Zach Ertz would be the play. Like, he saw a ton of targets from Jaden Daniels on Sunday. It didn't turn into anything in terms of an actual stat sheet. I think it was like 2 for something. It wasn't good for 8 targets. But against Baltimore, if it's catch-up mode, it's just easy passes for Daniels. If he's not going to run, just to dump it off over the middle of the field. That if you are in a Kelce pinch, my first option to look at is going to be Hunter Henry, because he's still available in over 50% of leagues. He's been bad had the past few weeks. He had the one big game, everyone picked him up. He sucked, now everyone has dropped him. But with Drake May coming back in, maybe a tight end connection is where he wants to be. Rookie QBs and their tight ends, that's always something to look at. In very, very deep leagues, it does look like Tommy Tremble is going to miss time. Not sure if Ian Thomas is going to be back off IR yet. So Jatavion Sanders for Carolina and his horrible, horrible dropping problem could be an option in the very deepest of leagues. He is a rookie. He was running a ton of routes last week. He got a bunch of targets against the Bears. It just, nothing happened. He just dropped them all. So if they're playing catch up against the Falcons, it is an easier defense to go against than the Bears. So maybe that's a situation that you can put yourself in this week. Quarterback wise, I mean, you know who you're starting at quarterback right now anyway, but in terms of injury, as mentioned, Derek Carr is going to be out multiple weeks. We'll see who ends up starting for them right now. Anthony Richardson is expected to be back in. Aiden O'Connell likely to start for the Las Vegas Raiders. That's bad news for everyone who's on the Raiders because he stinks. And then Will Levis is expected to be in for the Tennessee Titans coming off the injury he sustained on Monday Night Football 2 weeks ago, but he's had the bye week to recuperate. Lamar number 1, Jaden Daniels number 2, Burrow, Hurts, Love. That's the top 5. Stroud, Purdy, Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, then Josh Allen. And Josh Allen is only here out of respect alone. He is historically terrible against the Jets. But you know what he can do with his legs, and that's always worth so much. That 12 felt like the lowest I could rank him. Although, if I was in a situation where I had Geno, Fields, Kyler, Anthony Richardson, or even the Goof against Dallas, like, those guys are in much better situations this week. That it's never fun to recommend benching Josh Allen, but it's a spot where he's coming off what was very clearly a concussion that they didn't report. When you have to use smelling salts on the sidelines, it's not for kicks. It's for you had a concussion to get yourself zoned back into this game. They could be without Shakir. Obviously, we know about the Jets' pass defense. It's a really bad spot for him in this game. But again, the times when you think he's in a bad spot, he rushes for 2 touchdowns and throws for another 2. Then if you have Josh Allen and you bench him for like Baker Mayfield or Andy Dalton or Bo Nix, well, Bo Nix is in a tough matchup, so not him. Dalton, I think, is the end of the acceptable starters this week, and either, good quarterbacks and bad matchups, bad quarterbacks and good matchups, whatever it might be. You could bench Josh Allen for any of those people. The thing that you would have to try to talk yourself into is, how would you feel if he was the top scoring quarterback of the week and you bench him for Baker Mayfield? If you can live with that, bench him. If you can't, play him. That'd be my advice on Josh Allen this week. But I definitely know that on Underdog, I am taking unders for the passing game on Monday Night Football. But all of those Monday Night Football picks coming up on Monday's quick show in the mornings on the Fantasy Football Picks and Bets, where I go through all the injuries and pickups of the week, plus the top underdog plays for Monday Night Football, Bills at the New York Jets. Finally, defenses for the week. Houston is at number 1 against, it's got to be Drake May. They have no offensive line. Top 5 in pressure rate for the Texans right now. It's a perfect confluence of circumstances. It's funny because I had the Seahawks at number 1 last week, and it didn't really come through. But they scored a touchdown to make up for it anyway, so it all worked out. But the Texans are in a great spot here, as are the Steelers, as are the Bears against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's not giving up a ton of pressures, but again, they're very easy to run against. But if they can get out to a lead, they can attack Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence, no stranger to turnovers or doing something completely stupid. So the Bears at number 3 in the London game against the Jags. After that, the Chargers against Denver, then the Denver Broncos against Chargers, just the team who's favored in the game I would put a little bit higher because they'll likely face more passing attempts in that spot. The Colts, Falcons, Titans, Packers, and Philadelphia Eagles. The Green Bay pressure rate continues to be middling for the year, but their adjusted sack rate is super high, and this is a spot where, as 5-point favorites at home, if they can once again jump out to this lead, Kyler Murray is going to be playing catch-up mode. They might give up a ton of yardage on the ground or even yardage through the air to Kyler Murray. I'm not too concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is that they can just go tee off on him in this game. I like them at home, and Arizona coming off a win the past 2 years is absolutely horrendous. They don't win 2 in a row very often. The Niners, Philly at 10, Niners at 11, Tampa at 12, 12. Raiders, Jets, Bills. Jets could be higher, but if it's more running in that game, if it's James Cook, Josh Allen on the ground, and it's a low-scoring game, there's just not going to be a lot of fantasy points to go around. Ravens, Cleveland, Cincinnati, New Orleans, Giants, Patriots, Lions, Seahawks. I suppose you could technically play the Commanders in that high-scoring game and just hope for a fluke to happen. I just don't really want to play a lot of defenses against Lamar Jackson at this point in time. Once again, code Mayo at Underdog. The rankings are down in the description. You sub to the channel, all right? And if you're looking for more of a fantasy breakdown for the rest of the season, that's what Celia and I do on Mondays. If you're looking for Jake, if you're looking for me, and us talking fantasy, it's on the Monday show. So just go over there right now, okay? Sub to the newsletter as well for future weeks where you get the ranking sent directly to you, okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!